Welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast, episode 153.
Greetings and welcome to the Comics Coffee Metal Podcast. I'm your host, Don Cardenas, and today I'm joined by the amazingly talented Brendan Albetsky. Brendan, thank you for coming on.
Hi, Don. Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm so happy you decided to contact me through the Comics Co-op, which we might talk a little bit about later.
Sure.
Really cool organization full of fine folks, including previous guest Elaine Will.
Yes.
But you're here to talk about a really, really cool book you have, the third volume of this book, MARU, KIRU, Destroy the Moon. This one's subtitled The Chosen Ones.
Yes.
Looks really awesome.
Thank you.
You were kind enough to send the first two volumes to me to check out, and while I didn't get a chance to like fully sit down and read them, I definitely looked through every single page, and it is just full of action, big, colorful, cool storytelling stuff happening there. Like just really cool stuff. I want to dig into some of the art stuff with all that because you are like the sole creator on the book, which is
That's right.
great because there's lots of like hats you got to wear, and like I'm curious to see how you manage those and how much you frustrate yourself with all those things.
Oh man, yeah.
But first and foremost, it's the show. We got to do it. Comics, Coffee, Metal. What have you been digging lately?
So I have been digging on many things. I do comics all day, every day. It's my job, and it's what I spend all my time doing. And while I'm working on that, I read comics at night, and we'll talk about. I've been reading a lot of Shonen Jump stuff lately. I've been deep into the manga stuff. You can obviously see the influence of that in my work. I was just at a show, Indie Comics Creator Con in New Haven a couple of days ago at time of recording. And I talked to a few people and a couple of editors, and they were like, well, you very clearly got because I'm always looking to get hired for gigs of these things. And they're saying, well, it's like, well, I can't necessarily hire you out of the gate because you have a little bit too much of a manga style. Maybe you could work on something that's a little bit more mainstream for Western stuff. And it's like, well, maybe I should stop reading Shonen Jump for 2 hours a night and start working on reading some Western comics again.
They should realize that maybe you doing your thing on something would be pretty freaking cool.
I mean, there are plenty of people that are drinking that already. So like, definitely. But for comics, I'd say that, comics definitely my first and foremost on all of these things. And lately I've been reading Dark Gathering. And let me hang on a second. This is a problem that I have was where I don't look at who writes these things because I'm just reading them on the app.
Who cares about the writers?
I have to. I'm forced to.
I guess you 50% you have to. I guess
I do. Yeah. Kenichi Kondo is the writer illustrator of Dark Gathering, and it was something that I picked up because I thought that it was completed, and when I got to the end of it, I found out that it's actually just on an extended hiatus, and so I've got yet another manga cliffhanger now hanging over me. The other one that I've really, really been loving is Bug Ego, which is written by One, who does One Punch Man and Mob Psycho, and it's drawn by we're gonna do this several times. Hopefully, you can edit around me.
Oh, it's fine. I am no stranger. The show is no stranger to me or someone else grabbing their phone. Like, what was I talking about? I got to figure this out. It's fine.
Illustrated by Kyoto Shitara is the illustrator on Bug Ego, and that is a liminal horror comic from the maker of from the writer of One Punch Man and Mob Psycho, and it's really something fun and different and fantastic. And the last one that I'll mention is I've been binging Shonen Jump stuff for so long. My favorite anime and my favorite manga right now is Dandadan or Dandadan, depending on how you want to pronounce it. Yuki no Butatsu. Dandadan is my favorite thing going right now in both anime and manga. And the reason I even started reading that was because it had the paranormal bent to it. But what kind of tipped it over the edge is I was in the middle of reading through One Piece, and somebody's like, oh yeah, if you need something when you finally catch up on One Piece and you need something to fill the One Piece shaped hole in your heart, you should start reading Dandadan. It's very similar. And I was like, I thought it was about like ghosts and aliens. How is it? Have you read it?
No.
Oh.
Manga and anime, that's kind of a blind spot, but not intentional.
Oh,
it's just something I haven't, because you are probably literally I'm gonna I'm pretty sure you're like the third or fourth person in a row
Mm-hmm.
just to mention like your comic stuff. It's shonen. It's uh, uh, don da da
Don Don Da Don.
don da don. I see plenty of my friends enough talking about this stuff. Like
Mm.
it's just one of those things where it's like, when I sit down to read stuff, like I'm so like I just it's option paralysis a bit.
Oh, sure,
I'm
definitely.
always talking about how I'm behind on a lot of stuff. I'm trying to be better about it though. But yes, that book, that series in particular, along with oh, what is it, Chainsaw Man,
Oh yeah,
and
definitely.
and just going back to the classics like 20th Century Boys and stuff like that. That's
Yes,
stuff
yeah.
that is on my my little Captain America Winter Soldier. Oh, I gotta do this list.
Mm-hmm.
you
Yep.
know. Yeah, it's definitely definitely hopefully soon
So
I'll be able to understand the passion everybody has for this stuff.
that's really what I've been reading on lately, though, and I'm actually you can clearly see the influence of it in the Maru Kiru work, and there's another story that I'm working on for another publisher, Dauntless Stories, that
Okay,
is
yeah,
heavily influenced by that. So I'm trying to talk about that project too much yet.
okay,
Not that I don't
yeah,
have permission to, but just
yeah,
because I'm focusing on the Maru Kiru
yeah.
stuff right now. But it's
No,
like,
I know Dauntless. I'm friendly with Marcus
oh, nice, okay,
on
great.
socials. Someone who's I need to get on here, of course.
Oh, you
But
could
yeah,
get him.
yeah,
He's gettable.
yeah. I just it's there's it's it's really an embarrassment of riches, really, for like
Hmm.
just like people I want to have on the show who I've been thankful enough to get some kind of contact with and all that. So it's really just more on me to like remember to ask this person, because when I'm lucky enough to have awesome people contact me, I'm like,
Mm,
well, you're going through the trouble of talking to me, so whatever I'm planning will not take precedence over someone reaching out to me if I can help it. So
that's definitely
yeah,
appreciated for sure.
yeah,
Uh, I'm thinking of other stuff. I said a lot. I said a lot of manga titles. Here's a. It's not even to call it a Western comic is kind of funny because it feels very European in a lot of ways. I guess that's Western. 20th Century Men by Denny's Camp and Stephen Morian
okay.
is like it's somewhere between like Watchmen meets Doctor Strangelove.
Okay.
It's a very good, very cerebral book that will make you feel bad about yourself in a way that is important, I think. So that's something I would really recommend people read. Um, so that's I guess that covers comics for now. We're going to get deep into
Yeah,
comic stuff later
yeah,
because I've
yeah.
got
We'll,
so many
we're definitely
comics things
gonna
to talk
have some
about.
more nerding out there for sure.
Yeah. For coffee, I've been drinking. I drink coffee every morning. Now, back when I drank things that were not coffee, I would drink a lot more coffee because I would
Yeah.
need to recover myself. Um, but I haven't done that for 8 years now. So I still drink coffee, but it's a purely for pleasure experience. But I
Not a necessity.
not necessity, yeah. So I try to drink only 1 cup of coffee every morning. I make it in a French
Hmm.
press because it's easy to clean and it makes me feel fancy.
Hmm.
And I like the wide awake coffees because they're not super expensive, but they're also a step up from like Folgers in a tub.
Okay.
But generally speaking, I'm looking for economy when I go for my coffee
Hmm.
because I do still need my daily caffeine fix, but I also don't. I can't justify spending $15 on half a pound. So
Yeah, yeah.
I try to.
It
I
gets a little rough sometimes.
definitely,
Yeah,
definitely,
yeah.
and I trend towards darker blends. But I do put cream and sugar in my coffee now, though, which is something
Okay.
that I did not do until I lived with my wife, who was incensed at the fact that I drank my coffee black, and then just completely ruined me for black
Yeah.
coffee. I think she made it her mission to make sure that I didn't drink
One
black
of
coffee
us.
anymore, and
One
it
of
worked.
us.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And from a metal perspective, I guess I listened to more metal than I thought I did because like I was telling you before the show that I was like, oh man, I'm thinking I'm going to struggle to come up with some metal that I've been listening to, but then I was able to come up with quite a bit. My favorite band at the moment is Japanese metalcore group called Hanabiye, and they were actually just in my home state of Connecticut. I couldn't go to the show because I had to go to a comic convention. So it's like, can't go. I have work,
Ah,
kind of thing. But they're becoming quite popular. I've been listening to them for a couple of years now, and it was one of those things when I first discovered them. It's like, wow, look at this crazy weird stuff that nobody knows about but me. And now I see them. I feel like I see them everywhere. It could just be algorithmical because I've listened to the music so much online. But the fact that they were they're from Japan, and the fact that they were in Connecticut last week is bizarre to me.
yeah.
But their music has really been a big influence on my work because it's been playing in the background so much, and it carries so much of that energy that is both feminine but also incredibly angry,
Yeah.
which you see in the comic. So that's something that is that's with me a lot. And beyond that, I'm thinking of albums that I listened to extensively while I was working on the comic. And in the early days, it was Dio's Holy Diver was constantly
Nice.
on the speakers because it was an album that took me about the length of my commute to my day job to listen to.
Okay.
So it was in heavy rotation, and I would think about the comic a lot as
Mm-hmm.
I was listening
Mm-hmm.
to it. Specifically, Stand Up and Shout. The first track on that album was a big one when I was thinking about kind of the attitude of the character and how I
Nice.
wanted to present. And then the other one I think I mentioned to you that I listened to a lot while I was working on the comic was Cosmic Cornucopia by I've never said this band's name out
Yeah,
loud.
I'm thinking. I was waiting to see how you would say it. It's like slug. Did you?
It's spelled SLUGDGE, so like sludge, slugdge.
Yeah.
They write songs about slugs. It's a sludge metal band, and they write songs about slugs. But yeah, it's a concept album about a bunch of astronauts that get murdered in space by space slugs. Zach Hazard introduced me to it as another co-op member, and I forget how it even came about, but it was just like I think I even said in the co-op chat that I was like, I'm looking for something to listen to while I work on this, and we put out this album. It's like, listen to this shit, and I did, and it's been in the rotation ever since.
Nice.
It's a really good album.
You're not the first person to mention Hanabi to me. Because I had to double check. I'm pretty sure. I'm going to forget who it is. I'm not even going to say. But yeah, someone definitely mentioned it to me before, and I definitely checked them out. And once I saw that, I'm like, I've heard of them before. So I just went to YouTube real quick, and like it auto filled when I was typing it in. I'm like, yes, I've listened to them before. And then hearing you say it's kind of like the soundtrack to Maru KIRU, I'm like, yeah, that tracks.
Yeah, no, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah,
no, I put up a TikTok the other day that I just started putting their music in my TikToks because I'm like, now let's just drop any kind of pretense here and just start using it that way. But yeah, they're super cool and they're super creative. And it's like the music is heavy, but it plays on a lot of those like really stereotypical J-pop tropes and like how you would think like a girly J-pop group would act, and then they like will segue that into like a ridiculously heavy breakdown. I think that they're a very cool band with a very cool attitude. That I really enjoy. So
yeah, they really struck me as kind of like the J-pop version of like Electric Callboy.
Mm-hmm.
Because people say like, well, baby metal, but like baby metal kind of
it's a totally different beast. Yeah, no,
it's different.
Please.
It's different. It's different. Like it's different enough. But like, because just thinking like with like Electric Callboy, like you have this stuff like this could literally just be like a club dance song, and all of a sudden there's this heavy,
yeah,
yeah, and Hanabi has that vibe where it's just like 1 minute you're grooving, next minute you're smashing something,
I feel like baby metal is an idol group that happens to be a metal band. Mm-hmm. Like they're very much, they do like the choreographed dances, and they do the things that a typical idol group would do. But they had their backing band is this guys dressed as ghouls and headbanging and everything, and that's it. I listen to them too, obviously, but it's like it's a totally different beast in my opinion, in just the vibe and the presentation and everything. But it's the other one that comes up a lot is Bandmate. I don't know if you have ever listened to them.
Bandmate.
They dress like
Sound,
maids. You'd know it if you saw it.
yeah. No, there you go. Yeah, that's a new one to me. So
Oh, you should actually check them out. So I mean, it seems really gimmicky, and it is.
I mean,
but
we're talking about metal here. Like it's like
it's no weirder than Guar, you know.
Yeah, like the band of the moment. People are obsessed with Sleep Token. Like they're in costumes, guys. Like it is what it is. You know, it's fine. It's who cares? I don't.
No.
So yeah, if someone has a different gimmick, sure. You know?
Yeah, no, and so they're very technical, and they're very it's like a classic kind of metal sound. I mean, the kind of thing that most people might even characterize as like hard rock now, because I think that slider gets moved as time goes on. But yeah, great band. They're all great. I listen to a lot of Japanese music now. I went to Japan recently. I'm trying to learn Japanese to very slow effect. But the media and the culture has been hugely influential on me and the work that I do. So it's one of those things that I've just kind of decided to lean into over the years, because I always find something inspirational in there. So
awesome. There's a couple bands I think you might dig.
Yeah,
based on what you've told me. If you're looking, and definitely not any kind of J-pop influences.
Doesn't need to be,
but if
I
you're
can broaden my horizons.
If you're looking for something that has the aggression and is definitely more of a, but has that feminine energy type of thing, I would recommend, if you're into any type of death metal, Crypta would be great. It's all female death metal band.
I need to make a list.
What's that?
I need to make. You're gonna rattle names off me. I need to make a list.
Yeah, Crypta, just Crypt with an A at the end.
Okay.
They're really good. They're very much like that classic death metal sound.
Yeah.
Like they don't do too much over it. But like it's just really well done stuff. You've probably heard of Spirit Box.
Oh yeah, I've heard of Spirit Box.
They're really good as well. Their newest album, Tsunami Sea, is really, really good. It contains like some of the most aggressive heavy stuff they've done, and also some of the most, not the lightest stuff they've done, but like lots of that stuff still kind of carries over from other releases.
Nice.
But just very melodic stuff, really good. And there's actually when you sent me the sludge, there's a band actually today that I just found out about thanks to awesome artist and former guest Adam. I forgot how to say your name already, sir. Adam Marcewicz. Marcevich.
I think I know that person.
Adman Comics. He did the fantastic book "Who Killed Cheryl Shaw" with Frankie White.
Yes, that's right. Okay, all right. I do know that person.
Adam's awesome. Hopefully, he's feeling better after his shoulder injury surgery situation.
Oh yeah, I heard about that. Get well soon, Adam.
But he just posted about a band called Nite, Nite, and he called it blackened heavy metal, and yeah, it's just like that old school like riffs and stuff you would hear like on a Dio album.
Sure.
But the vocals are much more like in that raspy death metal-y type. But it's not like overbearing to where it's like it's just noise. Like there's still some sort of like not fully melodic aspect, but it's not just like atonal, like
sure.
Like it all fits really, really well. So if you're just looking something like, because I told him earlier when he posted, I'm like, man, like 2 songs in, like I'm sold on this band. And at the time, like it was in the middle of the afternoon, like we had a storm rolling in. It was kind of chilly out, and it's raining. I'm like, the vibes were like immaculate for me to listen to this band right now.
Perfect.
But yeah, it's definitely some good stuff there. So
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to check out everything else you said, and some more of the sludge, because what I listened to was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's a really cool album, and I feel like it's fairly long as well, which makes it a great work soundtrack.
Yeah, you kind of like zone out or like kind of zone into it as
precisely. With the Hanabiya stuff, it's like they're very good, but you can listen to the whole discography in like an hour and a half. So
That's the best.
Yeah.
You know what? A bud and comic writer, Mark Bouchard.
Mhm.
They recommended. They kind of got me into some like hardcore bands,
Mm.
and I realized that like it was really easy for me to kind of like lean into them because when I like thrash metal and it's very
Sure.
much like a relative of thrash, but also like you can't get tired of it because it ends so fast.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you
No.
got like a 10-song album ending in under half an hour. You're like, I can't get sick of this. I can't be annoyed by this because it's over by the time I
Yeah.
have
No.
any type of strong emotion about it.
It's very
So
very punchy. You know.
yeah, so uh yeah, so yeah, it's nice to just like, oh, this band has short songs because I come from, you know, the times where songs are just getting longer and longer and
Hmm.
longer and fine, okay, good, but at some point you're just like, can we just like bang this out and be done? You
I
know?
was just at a friend's today, and he's a big Dream Theater fan, and I have dabbled in Dream Theater here and there, mostly because of him. And
Yeah.
I like what I've heard, but it's one of those things where it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't have 25 minutes to listen to the Count of Tuscany today.
So see, my thing with Dream Theater is I really love the Train of Thought album,
Hmm.
but that is also like their tightest, most concise,
Mm,
most metal like record. Ever since then, I've liked songs from their albums, but not
hmm.
like as much as I would like the whole album of that. So, sorry, I'm slightly distracted. My window's slightly cracked a little bit, and there's a cat looking for some love out there
Ooh.
right now. All right. Uh, that'll be fun. That'll be fun to recount on the video on the outdoor cameras later. Um,
Oh, not your cat then. Some.
no. We have a lot of stray cats in the
Oh,
area,
good. Oh, good.
and looks like we're going to get a few more
It looks like
in
it.
a little
Yeah.
while if this all pans out for that cat. Anyway, yeah, it just like it just became way too much. But like
Mm,
at the time, like I was still kind of into like their albums after that a bit, and then they came to Chicago and they're playing at the Chicago Theater. I'm like, oh, I took my wife, to go there. I'm like, oh, let's go check them out. She liked a few of their songs.
hmm.
I didn't realize it was like an evening with Dream Theater.
Mm, oh,
They played
okay.
one song I knew,
Really?
and the rest of the time, like none of the ones she knew.
Hmm.
And because they have a vast catalog or whatever, but
Yes, they've been
they were
around
like
for a long
going,
time. Yeah.
they were doing deep cuts in
Oh
this,
dear. Yeah.
and I'm just like, I enjoyed it as a musician,
Yeah.
but I was also like, okay, sorry, honey. I thought this would be more exciting for both of us. I thought we would both enjoy this a bit more. But anyway, yeah, it gets kind of rough. Even my favorite band all time, Metallica. Sometimes it's like, all right, we don't need a third verse, guys. It's cool.
Oh, speaking
It's
of
cool.
you're talking about Metallica, make me think of the other one that I was going to talk about, which was Daisuke Ishwatari, the Guilty Gear Strive soundtrack,
Uh,
which is the now have you played the game? Have you heard any of the soundtrack?
no, I have not. Is it a more current version of Guilty Gear, or is it
It's
like
the newest Guilty Gear game.
okay, okay.
And the review that made, this is a great soundtrack, and the review that just brings tears to my eyes of laughter is like, hey guys, check it out, Daisuke's new album comes with a free game. And
Nice.
it's that's another one where it's just like I was just listening to those songs, smell of the game being the theme of the
Hmm.
whole game, and that I mean, it's a great song, and it's very they got the singer who does most of the
Hmm.
um songs for the soundtrack. I can't remember his name. I could look it up, but we could look it up together. He was referred to as being like the front man for the Japanese Metallica. Um,
Nice.
well, let me look up his name real quick, which makes make me think of that. Naoki Hashimoto. is the name of the
Okay.
singer. And he does have a you could see him like singing Metallica songs in a lot of ways. So that's just funny to think about that. But
Not to drag out the metal section too long, but if anyone is interested in some Metallica sound-alikes, there's a band called Saint Mucus.
feel like I've heard of
St.Mucus.
that. I feel like I've actually heard of
They
that one.
they put out 2 albums in the 90s, but
Okay.
they have an album that came out in, I just double checked here, 96, called Am I Blood. And this album, while not the production quality would, that you would say, oh, it sounds like Metallica's production quality, it sounds like what people thought like the in between of Justice and the Black Album would be. So if you're kind of, because they sound like, it's not like, wow, Dead Ringer, but it's like, wow, that's really like close. Like just, and I haven't seen many people talk about it. I came across it with I think what like some YouTube algorithm thing said, oh, songs that sound like other songs, and like this popped up, and I'm like that sounds almost like a Metallica demo, like
Yeah.
like maybe they sped it up a little bit so his voice is a little bit higher, but it's like it's a pretty good album though if you're looking into that kind of Black Album era vibe of stuff.
Yeah,
But
it's cool. Yeah.
anyway, you have a brand new volume of MARU, which is live now on Kickstarter as of posting.
Yes.
Not
Yeah.
live this second, but when this goes up, it will be live.
At time
Hopefully
of
funded or close to funded, people.
let's hope. Fingers crossed. And if not, then listeners, do your job and go in there.
You just go back it, because like I said earlier, you sent me the first 2 volumes. I got to go through them real fast, and it is definitely action packed, definitely
Sure.
very dynamic with everything. Love the color palettes being used. It glows off the page almost. And I was really it was really cool to kind of see the actual evolution of your art from the first one to the stuff I'm seeing now with the 3rd volume. And what I tried to look it up, I couldn't find what's the time period in terms of like when you did the first one to now.
I will tell you. The first thing I want to say about the campaign that's running is that we're funding for this one just the first issue of the 3rd volume. So it's the kind of thing where I've realized that to do the entire 3rd volume would take me probably another 1.5 years at least. So I don't want to go silent during that time, since it's already been a year since the last campaign for this. So I am going to be doing it an issue at a time.
Okay.
But it is a brand new arc. It's a good jumping on point if you have not read any of the material. And of course, there's going to be catch-up tiers if you'd like to read the first 2 volumes, which I would of course highly recommend. But it did start the comic proper for MARU, KIRU, Destroy the Moon started in late 2019.
Okay.
And then I really got into it for obvious reasons in early 2020. And the genesis of it was I was just coming off of putting a quote unquote failed project to bed. And it was the kind of thing where I had been working on a webcomic for a couple of years, and it was just getting kind of zero traction. I was not having fun working on it anymore. I didn't want to look at it anymore. I didn't want to do it anymore. I just wanted to be done with it. So I wrapped that up, and I was working on art for a charity trading card set that my friend Scott Madrinsky was putting together. And he did 3 of these sets in total. There were 2 X-Men ones, and there was a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles one. I was on all 3 of them.
Nice.
And I don't think he's done any of those since then. If he has, he owes me an explanation, because he should have reached out to me. I would have loved to do cards for it.
That sounds really fun to
real fun. No, they were great collections. But he asked me while we were working on one of those. I think it must have been one of the X-Men ones, but it might have been the second X-Men one. He asked me, like, you're a comics guy. What's your next comic going to be? And I had really not put a whole lot of thought into it up until that point. And I just kind of blurted out to him, like, oh, I'm going to make something about barbarians that want to blow up the moon. and he was very, very excited by that little pitch. He's like, "Oh, that sounds so cool! I would read that." And I'm like, "Okay, then that's what I'm going to do then."
Yeah, that's something I just made up right now.
Yeah,
That sounded
yeah.
ridiculous.
But that was really kind of like the heart of it, is
Mhm.
I wanted to do something that was really bombastic and
Yeah.
fun, that was going to reignite my love for making comics, and that's what it did. I whittled down the troop of barbarians to just the one in MARU, KIRU, but the kind of the core quest remained the same, in that she's trying to take down this cult of the moon that nefariously rules the world, and they worship a god who lives on the moon. So her solution to this problem is she's going to destroy the entire moon and just take them all out at once. And of course, there's a lot of complications in that
Yeah.
quest. But that's kind of how we got started with it. And I've been drawing for about 10 years at that point. And it was really just starting to get comfortable with the idea of like doing a long form story, and starting from a beginning point, and kind of knowing like this is going to be my big epic, which is not something I would necessarily recommend new people giving a
Yeah.
shot. Like you start something a little bit smaller and then work your way up to your epic. But if you're like me and you're impatient, go for it.
Sometimes it works out, but
Yeah,
it's not
sometimes it
something to bet
does.
on. Yeah.
But the idea was to just, it started out as a webcomic, and the idea was to just do something that would, the chapters would be as long as they needed to be
Mhm.
to communicate what I wanted in the length of the chapter. And it was going to be, just the good parts kind of thing, where it was all the action and all of the exciting bits. And anytime that I was getting bored making something, I just throw it out, because I'm not
Okay.
going to do that. If I'm bored making it, then you're going to be bored reading it, was kind of my theory. And so each chapter kind of builds on the last one, in every possible way, both from a meta
Yeah.
standpoint and from an in-world story standpoint. So I did the first chapter, and then I actually did a preliminary version of the first chapter, which never saw
Mhm.
the light of day, and is concluded as back material on the first printing of the first volume. And there's only 150 copies of that were printed, and they're never going to be printed again.
Mhm.
So if you have one of those, congratulations, you've got something rare. But I did a preliminary thing that I was like, okay, I can do better than that. And I started over, and that's when she got the big long pink and purple hair. She
Mhm.
actually didn't have the hair in the first chapter of that comic. And I was just like, something feels wrong here. I don't know what it is, and it was that. But I did that first chapter, and then I did a second chapter, and I'd
Mhm.
had a little bit more experience as an artist. I did a little bit better job. Things look a little bit different as the characters kind of start to develop. In the third chapter, it happened again. In the fourth chapter, it happened again. And I'm actually thinking about talking. I've actually thought about this recently. It's like, wow, the art that I'm putting out in volume 3 is light years ahead of where I started. Should I ever like actually go back and consider like doing a redraw? And the answer is no. That
No,
don't
never do
worry.
that. Never do that.
Never. And the reason being, it's like the people who have supported the comic from the beginning, and I'm eternally grateful to those people who have been with the comic from the start, and have kind of followed Maru's journey and drawn the fan art, and
Yeah.
been really cheering me on from the sidelines every time I put out a new chapter. You're just amazing folks in the community. Uh, they found the comic. That was what they fell in love with. That was what they liked about it. I'm not going to change that. I'm very proud of
No.
that. I want to keep that as part of the comics history, because it's a deeply personal book for me. It represents everything that I want to bring to the comic scene, and you know, part of that is tracing the journey of the artist, and part of that is showing that like you can continue to develop and you can continue to grow. You don't need to pigeonhole yourself ever. If you have a
Yeah.
new cool thing that you want to do it. The
Yeah.
only thing that uh when people I feel like people, especially internet artists, and I'm an internet artist, so I've gotten hung up on stuff like this. They get really hung up on art style, and they
Mhm.
really hung up on like, what is my style? I need to develop my style. I need to stick to my style. And it's like the only thing that makes something your style is you made it.
Yeah.
When you're dead and it's 100 years from now, and they've collected up all your work and they put it all in the room, the only thing that's going to unify all those pieces is the fact that your hand made it. it's not going to matter at all whether your issue 1 looks like your issue 20.
Yeah.
Because we're going to know your name's going to be on it, your signature's going to be on it, and we're going to be able to see that journey of your artistic career. And that's like where the really special stuff happens. So
Yeah.
I feel like I might have gotten off point from what your original question was.
No.
But...
You know, granted, you know, I want people, you know, we want people to know what the book's about, what's on. But you know, one of the things that I've been told previously before about the guests on the podcast is people love it when we get into this stuff, because you get to go into the, you know, how we're working, you know, how we feel about the work, how do, you know, what's all this kind of like detail stuff that, you know, we're all fans of the medium.
Yeah.
You know, I love nothing more than seeing what an artist did in issue 1 and what he looks like at issue 20.
Oh, for sure.
You know, I can think of, like, you know, even looking back, like look at Ryan Otley with Invincible. You know, the guy who drew, you know, those first few issues he did. I think he started in issue 7 or 8. Oh no, wait, was it past 8? I forget which one he started with, but until, you know, the end of it, like vastly like technical skill, like leapfrog over leapfrog, but there's still like markers of like what he does from the very beginning. And, you know, having been in a position myself recently, I've actually looked at having to look at some of my older stuff. Yeah, it's just like, man, I wish I could redraw this, but then it's like, but why? I learned what I needed to learn by doing that. Going back over that just seems like pointless. You know?
Yeah.
And even like, you know, if I think about like old commissions I've done or whatever, like I could say like, oh man, I wasn't that good, or I didn't do that. But, you know, it's, to me, it feels like I'm insulting the person who bought it because they liked it and they may like it more than anything else I'm doing now. You know, and it's like, this is all subjective. It is. And you know, we're always fighting the idea of what looks like in our head, you know, and the what is my style thing that's been around. Like, I don't know how old you are. I'm 42. That's been around for as long as I can remember. Like, what's my style? Like, what do I draw like? And getting hung up on that is kind of a rite of passage. A little bit.
You're right.
And then just being able to realize like it is what it is. Like the day I realized like, oh, I'm not going to draw like these people I consider my influences ever. I'm just drawing like me, was one of the, you know, like most freeing days I've ever had.
Yeah.
Granted, you know, not that everything's roses. You still have your struggles, but like when I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna draw like Adam Kubert and Mark Silvestri. It's just not gonna
Mike
happen.
Mignola for me was the one that I finally let go of. It's like, that's not ever gonna be me.
Like I can take stuff from them, sure. I can maybe point out here or there, like, you know what, there's that. Like in the last issue of my book, like I was able to point out like, oh, I just drew a Ron Lim face. You know, that was one of my guys in the 90s of X-Men 2099. So, you know, there's that kind of stuff, but like, you know, again, it's going to look like you no matter what. Because then I can go look at the first book I did like 10 years ago and be like, yeah, I can say technically I'm a lot better, but I see me still here.
Yeah.
You know, and that's cool though, because I can see like the differences and all that. And, you know, you're kind of mentioning some of your influences and all that. And in the latest stuff that I've seen of yours, I'm getting a lot of like early Ed McGuinness kind of.
Okay.
I think like not like 1-to-1 at all, but like just something about like the willingness to have these just big, chunky, exaggerated things happening, but very clean, you know?
Yeah.
And I think your coloring really complements that very well. Like I like the like, I know you it's not all like hard cuts everywhere, but like I really like how you kind of do that, because it kind of like really, because you have these like very dynamic poses and very dynamic, you know, a lot of the you know, perspective, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And for some reason, to me, like seeing the hard cuts in the coloring really grounds all that. and it just
Yeah.
makes it pop more. Is that it? And so
I don't
when
know
you're,
why I'm so averse to soft edges, but I definitely am.
I mean, it's certainly not taking anything away. That's for sure.
Mm,
To me, it adds to the what you're doing. It all complements each other, which is very difficult to do when you're working on it from inception. In my own personal experience,
mm.
So my question for that is, when you are, you know, drawing, what I guess the big question is, what is your process? But also, like, at what point do you go from I'm writing this, I'm drawing this, I'm figuring out how I'm coloring this?
I don't write much. Honestly, writing is one of the last things that I do in the process. And that's changed a little bit here and there, just kind of based on who I'm working with and then what I'm doing for the
Yeah.
project. When I'm by myself on this book, um, I plot out the story on index cards.
Okay.
I use the Kishotenketsu method that's laid out in Hirohiko Araki's book, Manga in Theory and Practice, which divides the story into four distinct parts, which is essentially the setup,
Mhm.
development of the setup, the twist, and then resolution. So I kind of have those four cards on the table, and then I hit my kind of my key moments
Mhm.
that I want to fit into each of those sections on an index card, and from there I really go right to the thumbnailing.
Okay.
Um, I focus heavily on the action scenes, obviously, but that is I kind of figure out what I want my big moment to be in the comic, and I kind of draw around that. And when I've kind of shaped that visual outline, that thumbnail, then I do a proper pencil through, and then ink and color, and then dialogue goes last. My coloring process has kind of changed and grown a lot over the years, and flipped and gone back and forth between a few different ways to do it. The way I do it right now is I do two tone passes on my line art. So I do everything in digital. I use Clip Studio, and I will do two tone layers, a base one at 20% opacity, black,
Okay.
and then one on top of that with another 20% opacity for a total of 40. Because anything darker than that kind of gets muddy when you print
Hmm.
it. And do my kind of my regular shadows and then my dark shadows with those two layers. And then after that, I'll run through with my flats on everything, and then I'll start doing the highlights. And I'll do anywhere between 1 and 3, sometimes maybe 4. I'm getting really extreme with the
Okay.
highlight colors. And I focus very strongly on the color values and as opposed to the hues. Usually I go back through my color theory is not super fantastic. So I will go back through with my color wheel and kind of just, pick complementary and opposing tones and just be like, all right, here's how we're going to hue this thing. But,
Yeah.
the tone work is already done for the most part. So, the values are in place. And once you've got the values in place, you can kind of tweak your hues. And when you're working digitally, it's especially easy to kind of change things after the fact and fine tune it to be what you
Yeah. Yeah.
really want it to be. So, um, yeah, that's kind of the soup to nuts for the Cliff's Notes version of the way I work my process. And I dialogue at the very end, which can be problematic when sometimes I don't leave enough space for word balloons. That happens to me sometimes. And when that happens, I pretty much just cut the dialogue entirely. It's not a dialogue centric comic; it's an action centric comic. The protagonist is super action centric. Some of her friends like to talk a little bit more, but she also likes to cut them off mid sentence. So it hasn't really been a problem for this comic specifically. When I work for hire books and I get scripts from writers, it's a totally different beast.
Yeah.
Um, and then I'm working on a book with a publisher right now where it is I'm being sent the story notes, and then it's
Okay.
down to me to script it and draw it. So I had to reverse engine. I had to send in a script for approval before I could start drawing the pages. So I had to kind of reverse engineer my
Ah.
process where I did my first couple of steps, And I actually did like a 38-page document in Clip Studio to get all my story things out,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of did a super rough thumbnail and dropped in the dialogue on top of that. And then I went over to my word processor and I typed out the dialogue and the script and
Yeah.
the stage directions, and I
Yeah.
sent that into the editor, and they're like, "Wow, your script is really well polished. We usually don't see them being this well polished." I'm like, "Yeah, well, it was like step 5 in the process
Yeah.
for me, so I had
It's
thought
been
about it a
written like
lot at
3
that
times
point."
already,
Yeah.
technically. No, that's awesome. That's awesome. As someone who, as an artist I'm trying to write more, like I want to write for other people. I want to
Hmm.
have, I want to have that Christmas morning feeling when people get pages in
Oh yeah.
from other artists. But like I've written some stuff, but like I feel like for me, like to write is to draw, is to thumbnail, is to
Yeah.
sketch it out. So like I feel some kinship there where I'm like, I'm gonna have to end up doing what you did. Like just
Yeah.
draw it out, fill it out, and then I'd never show anybody the layouts, but
Hmm.
just have the script formed from there. And if whoever's drawing it wants to see whatever my dumb ideas were for drawing it, that's their choice.
I work with a writer sometimes named John Scobles, and he's not an artist,
Mhm.
but he draws all of his scripts, like not in like super detail or anything, but like
Mhm.
he will thumbnail everything and
Mhm.
actually like work through it with that, and he'll send them to me, and he's always like, "I'm sorry, I'm not an artist." I'm like, "That really doesn't matter. You're putting the effort in. It's
Yeah,
and it shows in
that
the book."
that's actually really awesome that
Yeah.
he's thinking of it not just as words on the paper. He's thinking like,
Yeah.
how is this going to look as a book? Is Brendan going to kill me with it? Like, but that's the best parts about making comics is like when those collaborations are like you're both respecting what each other are doing,
Mm.
but you're also complementing each other, and it's just working well with that. So
Yeah,
glad to hear. Yeah, glad to hear he does that because.
I mean, it's a blended medium. Cartooning is its own
Mhm.
thing. So it has to. I really think it really has to be thought about that way. There's a trend that was happening for a long time, and I see it less now, which is good. Which essentially was people who were seeing comics as a way to get their screenplays done with less of a budget,
Yeah,
which
I
is
mean, there's kind of like a pretty big influx of those people with these different companies that popped up, and then all of a sudden
mm,
had all these books coming out with all these
hmm
artists and
and they
all
were all
that. And
scams. Yeah. Mm.
yeah, they're all scam. We can thank Cowboys versus Aliens for that whole
Mm.
insanity. Even though I'm pretty sure that movie bombed, people still thought it was a good idea to do that.
If you throw, I think that the kind of the theory there is probably if you throw enough shit at the wall, you might have something stick.
Yeah, yeah, I guess. I mean,
The
if
problem,
everyone's not familiar with what I'm talking about, but the Cowboys versus Aliens movie that came out probably like 15 years ago at this point, if
mm,
that soon. I don't remember exactly. I think it was uh did John Favreau direct it? I don't know. It had Harrison Ford in it, didn't
it
it?
did have
And
Harrison
Daniel
Ford in it.
Craig.
Yeah.
Um and it was basically apologies if I get the details wrong, but I'm fairly certain I'm 100% right on this. Screenplay that was going nowhere. The guy commissioned Fred Van Lente and artist, I'm sorry, I forgot the artist's name, to make a graphic novel. From what I'm told, the graphic novel was good because it's Fred Van Lente and he's,
Hmm.
you know, uh, incapable of writing something bad. Um, and then there was some sort of chicanery with like the sales of the book.
Sure.
So then they could say, look, this is a best-selling graphic novel. Where's my option? Let's make this
My
into a
dad
movie.
brought 1,000,000 copies. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of situation. So yeah, and ever since then, yeah, there's a huge I can't even think of the names of some of these companies that came and went
The
that were
trend
trying
of
to do all that.
the trend of publishers as IP farms, which is still not entirely dead, unfortunately,
No, no, no.
it screwed a lot of creators over. And there are people who, just thinking of the people who I have like heard personal stories from, and friends of mine in comics. And Doug Wood is the guy who comes to mind because he got his IP back at last. But it was like, they signed up to get books published with some of these publishers,
Mm-hmm.
they sold their IP rights, and then the books just never came out. And
Yeah.
they asked the publisher, like, what's going to happen with my book? And they're like, oh, they just printed a couple of them. They're sitting in a warehouse. We're never going to release it. Well, can I have my IP back? No. We're hoping
Yeah.
somebody's going to want to come along and option it, and that kind of BS. And
Yeah.
so many people got taken for that. And,
Yeah.
and it sucks because it's absolutely predatory, because
Yeah.
you get people who are, they're trying to make their bones in the industry, and you come to them and you say, I'm a comics publisher and I think you got the right stuff and I want to publish
Yeah.
your comic. Of course you're going to take that opportunity.
Yeah.
Of course you are.
I mean, we're all in it for the love of the game,
Yeah.
like, but at some point it's like, wait a second, like, again, once people smell like blood in the water, like, oh, we can take advantage of these people and, get some VC money and, walk away somehow richer than we started by just doing absolutely nothing except tanking people's careers and hopes. It sucks real bad. Even, when it extends to some of these smaller publishers who, crashed and burned, I know people, people who are involved with some of these places that are, they're still in, legal shakedowns or entanglements.
I mentioned Doug because he's at least a success story here. He bulldogged after his IP and he got it back. And he was able to release the book on his own, under his own power. He's got a Kickstarter running right now too, actually, that people might want to check out. It's called In the Pale Moonlight. It's like a kind of a, I was just looking at it today. It's a very like weird fiction fever dream whodunit detective comic. It looks really cool. I would definitely check it out.
Yeah, I know Doug. I think we've talked a bit about maybe jamming on something here or there.
Yeah,
Doug's
great.
He's always doing something.
Oh,
he's always working on something. He's one of those who's always grinding away at stuff. So glad to hear, but no surprise that, like, someone tried to screw him and he's like, give me my shit back.
Yeah.
No, this ain't happening. It's tough. It's real tough. But, and thankfully, it's kind of a double-edged sword. Like, but we have Kickstarter and stuff like that now to like kind of offset that. But it also like because making comics already is hard as shit.
Oh yeah,
it's awesome, but still hard as shit. I've worked many jobs in my lifetime. I've worked desk jobs. I've worked very physically demanding labor jobs, and making comics is, just as tough as any one of those things, man. Like, it's a different kind of tired, of course, it's not unloading appliance trucks, kind of tired, but your brain is just exhausted. And if you're the artist, your body's exhausted because you're in one position for hours at a time. If you're fortunate enough to actually be in some sort of routine where you remember to get up and walk somewhere,
I need to work on that. Yeah.
But yeah, it's super tough. And then having to do Kickstarters, which again, thankful it exists that we can do that.
Oh yeah.
But it's also like you're adding another full-time job on top of that.
I know. And the reason that I do it for especially for MARU KIRU is like I want to be in control of every part of that process. I frequently will tell people that if I had a printing press in the basement, I would print the comics too.
Yeah.
Because right now I think that's the only thing that's outside of my control. It's definitely like sometimes you look at it and you go, oh boy, what did I sign myself up for here? But it's just what needs, in a lot of ways, it's just what needs to be done to make the book happen, which is the ultimate goal at the end of all these things. It's just like, this is a book that for whatever reason I have decided needs to exist in the world, and by God, we're going to make that happen.
I mean, the vast majority of independent comics are made because that creator is like, I need to make this book, and if we're lucky, other people are like, yeah, you needed to make this book because I need to read it.
The funniest thing about it is, when I was working a day job, it was like I'm in the same boat. It's like I've worked a lot of weird jobs in my day. And when I was working my day job, it was like, boy, if I didn't have to do this day job, if I could just be an artist full time, I wouldn't care what I was working on. And I was working at MARU KIRU when I was working a day job. This was my thing that I was doing on the side and moonlight, whatever. I was like, boy, if I was just a full time artist, I wouldn't care what I was working on, and I wouldn't have to do this. I could just do whatever my job of the day was.
Yeah.
And now that I am an artist full time, I find myself even working on books that I love, with people that I love, with people that I really respect, and I think are making like important books. I'm still like, I gotta make mine too, though. Like I gotta.
Yeah.
Turns out I can't drop the passion project. I have to also do that. So
Yeah, it's if I can offer anybody any piece of advice, from my own personal experience, is if you got to take something, because if you got to work on something because it's some sort of benefit to you in that time, go for it. But the minute it becomes something you don't like doing, the minute it becomes something that makes you actively dislike what you do, you got to drop it, because that's just going to infect everything else.
No, you're absolutely right.
And you can't stick with something. You can't keep putting square pegs in the round holes if it's going to make everything else you do feel like a chore when it's something you love doing.
Yeah.
You got to kind of protect that. It's difficult. It's really difficult, because I had to drop off of something where I'm like, it just made me not happy to work on comics, and it was the steadiest money I was getting from that. Not much, but way less than the work I was putting into it. But it was, but in your head, it's like, I'm getting this. It's quote unquote reliable. But yeah, it's just, you can't do that, because you'll burn yourself out. And then again, the projects you love and you really want to do that are yours, or if you're working with somebody else that it's also yours or whatever, it's just going to affect that. And it's not worth it, man. It is not worth it, especially this day and age, and in this economy, in this society, however dramatic you want to be about it. Like, that you got to hold on to the shit you love, man. Because you got to nurture it. You got to take care of it. And that includes yourselves. So like, get up and walk, people. Get up and walk around. Just walk around. Just do something.
That one's specifically for me. I'm gonna
for everybody, including reminding myself to do it during the day, just to get up and walk somewhere, because it's a grind. But again, we're in it for the love of the game. We love doing it. We can't imagine not doing this for the rest of our lives.
No, can't stop, won't stop.
I've told my wife, like, it doesn't matter what I'm doing that makes my income, I'm going to be making comics.
Oh yeah.
It's not something I'm like, oh, I'm 65 and I can't make, like, unless I physically can't, and I can't find any workarounds, I'm going to keep doing it. Like, it's just,
this is why we got to figure out how to work with other artists now. So
you
have that in your belt for when you
start getting these young guns, like, endeared to us. So we
I got a young cousin who's just starting to get into comics, and they don't know it yet, but they're gonna be my hands someday when I can't do this anymore.
Start them off on backgrounds.
Yeah.
Like, okay, you can now do the background figures. Okay. Now you can work on flats.
Just do the whole thing. Yes.
Yeah. Just yeah, exactly. But that's the dream, right? No. Anyway, we went way off topic. You mentioned you work in Clip Studio. And there's actually a little bit of a discussion on Blue Sky today about it, which I don't know if it actually turned into any type of like real like kerfuffle or anything, but
there's always a kerfuffle.
Talking about like, asking people what tools they use, what brushes they use, and stuff like that. And me personally, I learned one of the very first lessons I learned was like, no matter what tool you use, if it's the same exact one as your favorite artist, it's not going to make you any better in any way whatsoever.
Nope. But that's why I use the round marker brush and nothing else. I'm not joking. Yeah, no, I only use the basic round marker brush. I have two versions of it. One of them is pressure sensitive. One of them is not. And that's all I use. That's not entirely true. I do use a pencil tool now for my sketch layers. I
Okay.
didn't used to, but now I do actually use a pencil tool for sketch layers. But that's it. Yeah. No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't. I've been using Clip Studio for years, and I have tried out different tools here and there, and they've never really held my interest. I don't know. I like it to. I'm not really concerned with replicating a traditional
Yeah.
a traditional tool
Well,
experience.
yeah, that's definitely a different school of thought with
Mm,
working digitally, because there are other folks who want to replicate, want make everything they do on paper look the same as what they're doing on digital.
yeah.
And there's other people who just, especially, there's upcoming generations, even current generation, people who are like, I've only drawn, like, I draw on paper now and stuff, but like, I learned on a tablet. Like, I learned on, this or that, and it's only going to be more so on and on, because I can look around lots of places, and I see younger kids and they got, they got the pencils on the tablets,
Hmm.
and that's how they're drawing stuff, and that's how they learn. And that's cool. That's great. I mean, it's a
Yeah.
means to an end to get it done. And, but the one thing I did learn about myself though, was like, I know that those things to be true, that you're not going to get any better by using the same tools or even knowing the same tools. But I'm such a fucking nerd about it. Like, I
Hmm.
just want to know anyway.
Oh,
And
sure.
it's the same way with like guitar stuff, and like, I mentioned, like, I'm a digital brush hoarder.
Hmm.
Like, the sheer amount of digital brushes I have saved on my iPad is sickening. Um, but truthfully, when I'm inking, I use the same two every single time.
Yep.
And it's not the stock ones, because like digital didn't really click for me until I found ones that kind of like worked closest to how I felt like
Hmm.
things looked when I did traditional art.
Hmm.
But I use those same two ones for the past, 5 years, ever since I switched
Oh,
to
yeah.
mostly digital. Granted, I have lots of other brushes I like to use for like textures and stuff. That's
Sure.
cool. Shout out to Jason Piperberg, amazing artist. Really awesome dry brush set he
Hmm.
has out. If you have Clip Studio, I highly recommend you get it, because even if you don't use it for like actual drawing, just for like
Hmm.
sheer textures and stuff, they're awesome. Um, but I even make some of my own just for like
Oh, that's cool.
shortcuts for things I got to do.
Yeah.
Like if I have one for hair, for like
Nice.
hair on arms and stuff. Like,
Yeah.
I know how I'm gonna draw the hair on the arm. I don't need to do
No, yeah.
do this.
You can take that shortcut. Yeah.
I could
You can
take that
Wally Wood that
shortcut. Yeah,
shit. Yeah.
you know. Um, so things like that. But like I used to use the same two. Friend and Snot Scott inkers. That's what I
Mm.
use. And for 99% of everything, So it's just kind of one of those things where it's just like, I just like, it's nice to fuck around with them, and like
Yeah.
play with them. But
Sure.
then, if anyone's like kind of like struggling with that idea of like, just, I need to find the right thing. Like, I did need to find the right inker to make me feel comfortable using
Hmm.
digital,
Yeah.
but it wasn't one like it made me better as an artist. It just mimicked what I was doing on paper closely enough to where I'm like, I have like a grasp on what this is going to do when I do this, and
Yeah.
how
Yeah.
it's going to feel when it looks like this. It doesn't like not look like me, or like a sketchier version of me or
For
whatever.
sure. Yeah.
But
Digital drawing for me has always been like almost kind of the opposite direction of it, which is like drawing on digital for whatever reason feels the way I always wanted drawing on paper to feel, and it like for whatever reason the drawing on paper experience for me has always just been this like a disconnect in the brain,
okay.
where for whatever reason I expected the sensation to feel a certain way, and it
Mhm.
didn't. And I've kind of found that in the digital realm, so I feel like it's made that kind of easier for me to separate
Mhm.
from that and find tools that are not necessarily going to mimic what I'm doing on the paper, but
Mhm.
are going to feel, have the feel that I want them to when I when I pull the brush.
do you feel that translates to now whenever you do work on paper? Like there's a translation between like how you approach things digitally to
I almost only the only really traditional art that I do anymore is pencil.
okay.
Um, I don't, and I only do it recreationally, really.
Okay.
I've actually been thinking about. I have some large pieces of Bristol board lying around. I've been thinking about doing some pencil illustrations on those and trying to sell them at cons, because I have had a couple
Mhm.
people ask me like, "Hey, do you have any? Only see prints here. Do you have any originals for sale?" I'm like, "Actually, I don't have any originals. Period." Um, so I've been thinking about maybe just doing something like that, just to do some designs for
Mhm.
funsies, and then I could have something to show off to people like that. But I think they would be exclusively pencil sketches. I just for what ink is something that always really intrigued me as a kid. When I was a kid, I was in my local 4-H club and was in this antique one-room schoolhouse that was down the street from my parents' house, and the older kids got to do pen and ink, and I
Oh.
never got to. And I was like, I want to do that. They're like, no, that's for the older kids. You have to do, I don't know, whatever thing it was that they made me
Yeah.
do. Um, and so I was kind of obsessed with that. I think that's kind of where that started, where for whatever reason, I started to develop this idea of like what wielding ink should feel like. And then when I got a little bit older and I was able to have, to do it myself, it was like, well,
Yeah.
that's not the sensory experience that I was anticipating. This has been a big disappointment, and my day is ruined.
I'm glad you bring up the sensory experience because for me, I have ADHD. So
Hmm.
like for me, like the sensory experience of drawing on paper, feeling, especially like using a nib on paper, just
Hmm.
hearing the like
Yeah.
to me, I love it.
Yeah.
I miss it. I
Hmm.
like hearing the lead on the pencil on the board and I love hearing all of that. But I'm my own worst enemy because when it comes to like just having to like wait for anything,
Hmm.
whether it's waiting for a large swath of ink to dry
Sure.
or if I make a mistake or something and I have to put some masking fluid on there or whatever and I have to go over it, the sensation's not the same because it's not the same
Mm.
material. It just like it drives me insane. So that's when like the digital part of it is like I love this so much because it feels it's
It's
it's a
consistent.
consistent
Mm. Yeah.
you know and I got the rougher matte screen protectors on there
Sure.
to get more of the drag and all that and and that helps out a lot. I still do some stuff traditionally because I like to you know do commissions here and there or
Sure.
sometimes with the covers for our book. Steve Bryant and I, the co-creator and writer, he's an artist as well, so we kind of like alternate some of the variant covers for each
Yeah.
issue, and we have a foil metal cover. um and for me, like the fun of that was like I got to pencil those traditionally, and then I got people who are friends and are artists, inkers, who were important to like my journey as an artist or as a
Mm.
creator, ink them.
Mm.
So now I have like these like two two covers inked by people who've been really instrumental to my career over my pencils, and I'm like, this is pretty awesome. This
Yeah.
is this is pretty awesome to have. But on the flip side, you know, I'm also glad I don't have another gigantic stack of pages
Sure.
from all my issues I have to figure out where to store somewhere.
Yeah.
Because as much as I love my book, as much as I love or proud of what I do, I know like no one's gonna want these original pages like this.
Someday, you
Um,
never know.
yeah, maybe. But so it is definitely the trade-off. But for me, it was just like, you know, I am guilty of like liking too many things
Hmm.
and being into too many things. So like so it's no surprise, for myself, like, okay, I love doing the traditional stuff. I also love doing the digital stuff. But yeah, there's definitely like a reason why I'm like, I'm gonna stick with digital for almost everything, just because, just again,
Yeah.
the ease of just like changing something on the fly, erasing something and not having to wait for, you know masking fluid to dry and then
Hmm.
being grossed out because you got to drag it through this little goopy
Mm.
crap just try to make it look right. It's just, and I know that's all in my head. There's other people who are like, I love that shit, and it's like, more power to you,
Hey,
man.
that's what you're into. That's what you're
More
into.
power to
Yeah.
I'm not here to yuck anyone's yums here, but like for me, like, you know, just having that clean feeling when inking is, you know, pencils. Yeah, let's get dirty as shit. Let's smear. Let's get nasty. You know, let's
graphite.
have
It's
this
great.
all you know, all covered in lead and all that. Sure, but yeah, when it
I,
comes to
I
inks, it's just
You know, I really wish I had a large format scanner. If I did, I would probably do some traditional pencils for
yeah,
pages, but
yeah,
I don't. So and you know, again, it's like I'm the volume that we have to work with sometimes is just like it's much simpler and cleaner to
yeah,
just do it on the computer,
yeah,
and then you file it on a hard drive and
yeah.
duplicate it onto your backup hard drive and stick that one
There you
back
go.
in there. That's only two things, you know.
Yeah, and you know, and that's a huge reason why like I have so many of these like brushes, even is because like they take up no space.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
I'm not running out of drawers here like to store these things. I'm like that with like amp simulators on my for recording stuff too. It's like I
Mm-hmm.
have like I think at last I count I had like 10 of like this like different versions from different companies of the same like their digital
Of
version
whatever,
of the
yeah.
same amp. You know, it's like
Just to compare and contrast. Yeah.
why, you know, I use the same ones every day in and day out, like
Mm-hmm.
but I have all these just in case because usually they're free or they're like $5, you know, so
Yeah.
it's like, you know, some people have their vices. Some
Mm-hmm.
people like relaxing, you know, taking an edible or having a glass of wine or something. I like shopping for a cheap amp sim or looking for a new brush.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, that's my wine o'clock.
There you go. I'm with you on that. Yeah. No, it's it
Oh.
speaks to me on a deep level.
So no, it's awesome to hear that though that you have your system set up and all that. And I think it would be really cool to see like your stuff, at least like the penciled version, like
Hmm.
on paper and all that, because one, like your style, like I think just like seeing the pencil version of that paper would just look really cool.
Hmm.
You know, even if it is just like a sketchier
Oh
layout
yeah, sure.
thumbnail version. Um, but also like, you know, it's just I think people would really enjoy seeing that process of it, you know.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would
Like,
enjoy. Um, Thinking about this now, it's like, yeah, you know, I think I probably enjoy capturing that process too. I
yeah,
might give this a shot at some point. I've got all the materials. I've really got
yeah.
no excuse other than time.
Uh, well, and time's the ultimate excuse, though,
That's true.
Isn't it?
Yeah. I'm about to start a Kickstarter campaign. I should really start getting back into
Yeah.
traditional art.
What's some more things I can do to make my
Yeah.
life a little more complicated here?
Mm,
Now you're sounding like me,
yeah.
and I have to say, don't just
Or
ignore everything I said in the past 20 minutes. Then
the only thing you could do to improve that
stay
experience is
happy.
like expect to get everything perfect on the first try and get
Oh yeah.
really upset when it doesn't happen.
Oh yeah. Oh boy, we're not going to unpack that now.
No,
We don't
we don't
got
have
the
enough
time
time.
for
We
that,
don't have enough
sir.
time for that. Next time.
Next time. Well, I won't keep you too much longer. Brendan, thank you so much for taking the time to come on,
Yeah,
reaching
of
out.
course. Thank you for having me.
Really enjoyed our chat. I can't wait to see the next chapter of Maru
Thank you.
Kiru.
Yeah.
Everyone, it's going to be live on Kickstarter as we're speaking now. There's going to be a link in the
Yes.
show notes. You go there, you back it, and if not, I'm going to be very disappointed in you. I'm going to tell
I
you.
don't.
I'm going to tell any living relatives that you still respect
Wow.
what you did.
Wow.
How I don't know, but I'll find a way.
I believe
This
it
is the
too.
internet. I
Yeah.
will find a way.
Absolutely. I appreciate that. Yeah.
You threatening always works, right?
Yeah. Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
that's
It's never backfired ever.
it's never backfired. Yeah, for anybody. But yeah, please go check out Brendan's book. It's again Maru Kiro, Destroy the Moon.
Thank you. Yep.
The Chosen Ones at #1, first issue of
Yes.
the 3rd volume. Definitely do the catch up tiers because again, they're just really fun. At
Yeah.
the very least, they're really fun to look at. But
Mm-hmm.
having again read some as much as I could within the time frame I had to
Sure.
prepare for the show, it is just it's just like it's a ride, man. It's
Thank
like,
you. Yeah.
and that's what I love about comics is like sometimes it's this you know shit that makes you re-examine life, and sometimes like man that's just fucking fun. I want to read that again, like
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Appreciate
that
that.
and that's something I could definitely say about you the previous volumes as well. Is like it. you're definitely able to go back and look and find cool things, because again, the color palette is just wild and awesome and just screams off the page, and it just works really well with everything you got. And the storytelling you have, like, it's not surprising to me as an artist to see that, like, hear that you write with the art first, kind of,
Yeah,
because I can see it on the page, but it makes sense. It's not just the storytelling is there, which is incredibly critical for me anyway, because there's some artists I absolutely adore, but I look at their interior pages and I'm like, sometimes I'm like, why did you come on? Like, I was rooting for you. It's still beautiful though. It's still
You're
beautiful
supposed
and
to
better
bring
than I could
balance
do
to
on
the
my best
force. Yeah.
day, but still, it's like, the clarity of the storytelling, it is there,
I focus a
so.
lot on talking about the action in the book and the bombastic nature of it and everything. And something I've been thinking about is like more recently is like, the story is weird. If you like weird stuff, there's something for you in
Yeah.
here. It's, if for fantasy fans, obviously, but for sci-fi fans as well. I'd like to think that there's a depth of flavor to
Mhm.
what's going on there, and yeah,
Yeah.
there is rereadability of it because
Yeah.
there is a story happening. It just so
Yeah.
happens that the protagonist doesn't necessarily really care about any of the nuances of it, but they're still there. She's just not really paying attention to
Yeah,
them.
which makes it even better,
Yeah.
to be honest. It's like when you have that character, like, who's just a battering ram
Mm.
throughout the story, while everyone else is trying to, like, you know have this, explain the deeper things happening, or the world building of it, and
Does
this
not
person's just like,
care.
I'm like, did you not read the title? I'm trying to destroy the moon here.
Very much so. Very much.
uh,
Yeah.
awesome, awesome. So yeah, once again, Brendan, thank you so much for coming on. Everyone, please go check it out. And right now, let everyone know where they can find you on social media.
Sure, sure. So I use Brendan Albetsky, my name, as my handle pretty much everywhere. That's who I am on Blue Sky, and that's who I am on TikTok. On YouTube, I am Brendan Albetsky Draws, because I needed to let people know that I was an art channel. Um, but aside from that, I have a free newsletter that I send out once a month, that you can sign up for on my website, which not surprisingly is brendanalbetsky.com. And that is kind of the home for all of my stuff,
Mhm.
portfolios and book links, social media links, newsletter, like I said, and you can even get to the Kickstarter from there as well. So that's kind of my hub. That's something that I have control over and will not change anytime soon. The social media landscape is obviously always super
Yeah,
malleable,
it's
but
important to have that these days, for sure.
yeah, it really is. It really is. But yeah, no, just use my name, Brendan Albetsky. No punctuation or anything separating. That's just who I am on everything.
I appreciate and respect the consistency.
Yeah,
It can be hard sometimes, when doing all that, but like,
I'm lucky
when
that I have a weird name that is nobody else has and nobody else is trying to sit on. I haven't needed to come up with a unique handle because my name has been unique enough that I've never needed to
yeah,
change it. So
I've definitely heard some stories. I have a couple of my own about people squatting names, or just,
hmm
trying to be the first of your name on the Google search for for what you're
yeah,
doing. So, the name is half the battle, but keeping consistent is incredibly key. So
definitely.
kudos to you on that. Everyone, there'll be links to all that in the show notes below. And for the third, but certainly not the final time, hopefully, Brendan, thanks for coming on the show.
Don, thank you so much. This was really a lot of fun, and I would definitely come back. So I really appreciate you taking the time today. And this is what I want to say to. I don't think this was recorded before, but I found you through Cartoonist Co-op.
Oh, yes, please
Um,
talk about the Cartoonist Co-op.
and Cartoonist Co-op is a great organization. The barrier of entry is really low. If you basically if you work in comics and you are willing to help out a little bit your community, in that comic sphere, we want you. Come and be a member. Membership requirements can literally be as low as like drawing a picture of the Cartoonist Co-op mascots and then sending it into the database so that they can pull from it to use in their newsletter occasionally. And you got to do something like that once a year, and you're
Yeah.
trying to make a concrete impact on the lives of your fellow cartoonists. So that's the plug for the organization. For anybody from the co-op who's watching right now, I found Don using co-op resources, And I reached out to him, and he was really excited to hear from me, and invited me on the show. And I would definitely recommend, using those kinds of resources that the co-op presents, to put yourself out there and to get some eyes on your book. Because, something like this was a great experience. We've never met prior to this.
No, not at all.
But this was something that I was able to put together through the co-op. So I really appreciate, Don, you putting your name forward for that list to have people like me to have access to, and to being so responsive and so welcoming. So I definitely appreciate that. I want to thank you for that. So
It's all my pleasure. Thanks to Elaine Will for
thank you,
asking
Elaine.
me to if I was cool with it. I'm like, sure. Like if anyone's like a third as cool as you've been, of course, why not? And one of the best things about doing this podcast is just meeting new and awesome creators and getting exposed to books that I haven't been exposed to yet, or maybe I've only heard about peripherally or anything like that, and getting to know them and all that, and hopefully get some new eyes on your stuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's all about helping each other and spreading the word for each other, and I'm more than happy to do it. So, and I should probably get on joining the co-op myself, to be honest.
You really probably
I should probably do that.
It's not hard.
It's recorded now, and
Yeah.
I'm too lazy to edit this out. So it's gonna be up on the internet for everybody. So feel free to ask me how that's going, everybody.
Oh yeah, we're gonna put the screws to you. I expect to see you on that forum.
All right, awesome. Brendan, thanks for talking about the co-op, because they are awesome. They do very, very cool things. Everyone should definitely go check it out. Again, it's important to establish community and use each other as resources, because we're all we got sometimes, but that can be plenty to help us move along, get our books out there, get our projects out there. So yeah, everyone go check that out. I'll make sure there's a link in the show notes for that as well.
Definitely.
All right. Fourth time. Thanks, Brent.
You are welcome. You are very welcome. And again, I don't know how many times I've said it, but thank you for having me. This was a blast. So let's definitely do it again.
It's a date.
All right.